You have spent your whole life looking for the villain in your story. You look at the economy and say, it is too harsh. You look at your boss and say, he doesn't appreciate you. You blame the government, the weather, your upbringing, or the lack of opportunity. But let me save you 10 years of painful searching with one simple truth that most people refuse to admit. The only person who has ever truly stood in your way is staring back at you in the mirror every morning. It sounds harsh, I know. But it is also the best news you could ever hear, because if the problem were external, you would be powerless. But if the problem is you, that means you also hold the keys to the solution. The hardest battle you will ever face is not in the boardroom, and it is not in the marketplace. It takes place in the silence of your own mind between who you are now and who you could become. So tell me honestly, are you ready today to stop blaming the wind for where your boat is drifting and finally take the helm into your own hands? Let me tell you something about the nature of this battle. Most people, the overwhelming majority, are fighting the wrong war. They are fighting a war against the external world. They wake up and they battle the traffic. They get to work and they battle their colleagues. They come home and they battle the news, the economy, the political climate. They are constantly swinging their sword at circumstances, trying to beat the world into submission, trying to force the external environment to align with their desires. And year after year they lose. They lose because they have missed the fundamental law of life, which is this: success is not something you pursue. Success is something you attract by the person you become. You see, the majority of people are looking for a change in circumstances to solve their problems. They are waiting for the economy to improve. They are waiting for a better government. They are waiting for a raise. They are waiting for a lucky break. They are drifting. And let me tell you, you cannot drift to the top of the mountain. You do not drift into health. You do not drift into wealth. You drift into mediocrity. You drift into failure. That is the gravity of life. If you do nothing, if you do not actively fight the internal battle, the weeds will take over the garden. That is nature. But the successful, the ones who have mastered the art of living, they understand that the only territory worth conquering is the 6 inches between their ears. They understand that we all have the same wind blowing on us. The economic wind, the social wind, the political wind, it blows on the rich and the poor alike. It blows on the failure and the achiever alike. The difference is not the blowing of the wind, the difference is the set of the sail. You cannot change the wind, but you can change the set of the sail. And that sail is your philosophy. It is what you think. It is how you process the world. It is the internal dialogue that runs 24 hours a day in your mind. This is where the architect comes in. You must realize that you are the architect of your own life. If you do not design your own life plan, chances are you will fall into someone else's plan. And guess what they have planned for you? Not much. Most people are living in a house they never built. They are living in a structure designed by their parents, by their teachers, by the media, by their fears. They have never stopped to look at the blueprint and ask, is this what I want to build? Think about it. When you build a house, you don't just show up to the empty lot with a hammer and start nailing wood together hoping it turns into a castle. No, you have a plan. You have a vision. You see the finished product in your mind before you ever lay the first brick. But how many of us treat our lives with that same level of respect? We treat our careers, our relationships, our health like a lottery. We just hope it works out. We hope we get lucky. But hope is not a strategy. The internal battle, the war of you versus you, is the battle between the part of you that wants to drift and the part of you that wants to design. It is the battle between the voice that says it's not my fault and the voice that says I am responsible. It is a terrifying thought for many to realize that they are responsible. Because if you are responsible, you have no one left to blame. You can't blame the seasons. You can't blame the taxman. You can look in the mirror and say, I am where I am because of who I am. But here's the beauty of that realization. If you are the problem, then you are also the solution. If you drove the car into the ditch, you can drive it out. This is the great paradox of the internal war. It is painful to admit that we are our own greatest enemy, but it is also the most liberating truth you will ever discover. Because once you accept that the enemy is within, you stop wasting your energy fighting the world. You stop screaming at the storm and you start adjusting your sails. You start working harder on yourself than you do on your job. You start building a philosophy that can withstand the winter. You start becoming the kind of person who attracts success, rather than the kind of person who exhaustively chases it. You begin to understand that the marketplace does not pay for value. It pays for value brought to the marketplace. And if you are not very valuable, you will not make much money. It is harsh, but it is true. You can't demand more from the market than you have become. So the question becomes, are you building a life of value, or are you just passing time? Are you an architect, or are you a laborer in someone else's dream? Are you ready to stop fighting the wind and start setting the sail? I remember the day this concept truly hit me. I was 25 years old. I was working hard, or at least I thought I was. I was a hard worker. I was honest. I didn't cheat anyone. I showed up on time. But I was broke. I had pennies in my pocket and nothing in the bank. I had creditors calling the house. I had a wife and a family to support, and I was failing them. And to protect my own ego, to stop myself from going insane with the guilt of it, I had constructed a fortress of excuses. I had a list, a literal list. I carried it around in my mind, and sometimes I would even write it down. It was a list of all the reasons why I wasn't doing well. It was a list of all the external forces that were conspiring to keep me poor. I remember meeting my mentor, Mr. Earl Schoff. He was a unique man, a millionaire, a man who had mastered the art of living. He saw potential in me that I didn't see in myself, but he also saw my blindness. One day, he sat me down in his office. The air was cool, the desk was polished mahogany, and he looked at me with a kind of gentle intensity. He asked me, "Jim, how come you aren't doing better? You've been working for 6 years. You're a smart young man. Why aren't you wealthy? Why aren't you free?" I was ready for that question. I felt a surge of validation because I finally had a chance to explain my plight to someone who mattered. I said, "Mr. Schoff, let me tell you why." And I started to recite my list. I told him about the cost of living, how the prices kept going up but my paycheck stayed the same. I told him about the government and the taxes they were taking out of my meager earnings. I told him about the negative relatives I had who were always pulling me down. I told him about the company policy that was restricting my growth. I told him about the weather, the traffic, the cynical cynicism of the marketplace. I went on for about 10 minutes, laying out my case. I was pleading for my limitations. Mr. Schoff listened patiently. He didn't interrupt, he didn't nod, he didn't shake his head, he just listened. When I was finally finished, breathless and feeling quite righteous, he looked at me. He took a long pause, and in that silence, I felt the first crack in my armor. By the way, I'm going to leave a few moments of quiet at the very end of this video, a space of silence for you to sit with these truths, because it was in the silence that my life changed, and I want you to have that same opportunity today. But back then, in that office, the silence was deafening. Finally, he spoke. He said, "Jim, that is a very impressive list. You have clearly thought a lot about this, but there is one major problem with your list." I blinked. "What's that?" I asked. He leaned forward, looked me right in the eye, and said, "You're not on it." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to say, "But I work hard, it's not my fault." But the words died in my throat. Because deep down, in a place I had been avoiding for years, I knew he was right. I immediately tore up that list. I realized in that moment that I had spent my entire adult life analyzing the outside world, trying to find the villain, when the villain was my own neglect. The villain was my own lack of discipline. The villain was my own refusal to read the books, to take the classes, to sharpen my skills. I left his office that day a different man. I walked out to my car, and I didn't turn on the radio. I just sat there. I looked at my hands on the steering wheel, the same hands that had been broke for 6 years. And I realized that these hands could build a fortune, or they could dig a grave. It wasn't the economy, it wasn't the interest rates, it was me. I was the bottleneck. I was the lid on my own jar. The shame was overwhelming at first. It is a terrible feeling to admit that you are the reason your family is struggling. It is a heavy weight to carry when you realize that your bank account is a direct reflection of your personal value to the marketplace. I wanted to run from that feeling. But Mr. Schoff had taught me another lesson. He said, "Jim, don't run from the pain of the truth. Embrace it, because the truth will set you free, but first it will make you miserable." And he was right. It made me miserable. But that misery was the fuel I needed. I stopped looking out the window for answers, and I started looking in the mirror. I stopped wishing for things to be easier, and I started wishing for me to be better. I realized that if I changed, everything would change for me. If I became more, I could have more. It was the hardest realization of my life, but it was also the turning point. It was the day I declared war on my old self. The day I decided that the Jim Rohn of the past, the one who blamed and complained, had to die so that the new Jim Rohn could be born. And let me ask you, as you listen to this, do you have a list? If I asked you why you aren't where you want to be, who would be the first person you blame? Would you be brave enough to look at that list and see what's missing? Now let's go deeper into the mechanics of this internal war. Once you tear up the list of excuses, you come face to face with the most fundamental law of the universe. It is a law that was written before any of us were born and will remain long after we are gone. It is the law of sowing and reaping. Whatever you sow, that you shall also reap. It sounds simple, doesn't it? Almost too simple. But the implications are terrifying if you are not paying attention. The soil of life implies no judgment. It does not care if you are a good person or a bad person. It does not care if you are tall or short, educated or uneducated. The soil simply says, if you give me the seed, I will give you the harvest. But here is the catch, and this is where the battle of you versus you is fought every single day. If you sow nothing, you do not get nothing. If you sow nothing, you get weeds. You don't have to plant weeds. You don't have to water weeds. You don't have to cultivate weeds. They grow automatically. They grow in the absence of effort. This is the great deception of the modern mind. We think that if we just do no harm, if we just coast along, we will be fine. But life is not designed that way. In the absence of positive activity, negativity fills the void. In the absence of discipline, chaos takes over. In the absence of a plan, confusion reigns. So the internal battle is really a battle against the automatic. It is a war against the natural drift toward entropy. Your lower self wants to do what is easy. It wants to watch television instead of reading the books. It wants to eat the cake instead of the apple. It wants to spend the money instead of investing it. And that lower self is seductive because it offers immediate pleasure. But the higher self, the architect, knows the truth. The higher self knows that what is easy to do is also easy not to do. And the difference between success and failure is often just a few errors in judgment repeated every day, or a few simple disciplines practiced every day. You must understand that you cannot cheat this law. You cannot sow the seeds of laziness and expect to reap a harvest of fortune. You cannot sow the seeds of neglect in your relationships and expect to reap a harvest of love. And yet, look around. The world is full of people expecting a harvest they did not plant. They are looking for the heat from the stove before they put in the wood. They are standing in front of the empty field of their lives, shouting, "Give me the crop, and then I will plant the seed." But it doesn't work that way. You must plant first. You must give first. You must become valuable first. This is why I tell you, don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Don't wish for fewer problems. Wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenge. Wish for more wisdom, because you cannot change the winter. The economic winters will come, the personal winters will come, the sickness, the disappointment, the betrayal, they will come. They are part of the seasons. You cannot stop the winter, but you can build a stronger house. You can weave warmer clothes. You can become the kind of person who thrives in the winter while others freeze. This brings us to the concept of value. Many people are angry because they are not earning enough money. They say, I put in the time, I work 40 hours a week. But we do not get paid for time. That is a misconception. We get paid for value brought to the marketplace. That is why a man can work an hour and make $10, and another man can work the same hour and make $10,000. Is the second man working 1,000 times harder? No, that is physically impossible. He is simply 1,000 times more valuable to the marketplace. He has become more. He has mastered skills that are rare. He has developed a philosophy that is potent. He has won the internal battle to the point where his external value is undeniable. So the question you have to ask yourself in the dark of the night is not, why isn't the world giving me more? The question is, why haven't I become more? This is the hardest work you will ever do. It is easier to get a second job than it is to work on your own philosophy. It is easier to complain about the government than it is to read a book on economics. It is easier to blame your childhood than it is to take responsibility for your adulthood. But the easy way leads to the hard life. And the hard way, the way of discipline, the way of self-mastery, the way of the internal architect, leads to the good life. It leads to a life where you are not a victim of the seasons, but a master of the ship. You have the power to turn your life around, but it requires a total transformation of your thinking. You have to stop being a volunteer victim. You have to stop hoping for a lucky break. You are the break. You are the opportunity. But only if you are willing to kill the part of you that settles for average. Only if you are willing to look at the weeds in your garden and say no more. So I ask you, as you look at the field of your life today, what are you planting? Are you planting seeds of greatness, or are you just letting the weeds take over? Now, I want to ask you some tough questions, and I want you to answer them honestly. There is nobody here but you and me. You don't have to impress me. You don't have to lie to me. But for your own sake, do not lie to yourself. Let's do a little audit. Let's look at the last 5 years of your life. If we were to play a video of your last 5 years, your habits, your work ethic, your conversation, your reading list, would you be proud of what you saw? Or would you be embarrassed? If you continue to live exactly as you have lived for the past 5 years, where will you be in the next 5? Will you be wealthier? Will you be healthier? Will you be happier? Or will you be exactly where you are today, only 5 years older and with 5 years worth of more excuses? You see, most people are hoping for a better future while repeating the past. That is the definition of insanity. You cannot keep doing what you're doing and expect a different result. If you are broke, admit it. If you are out of shape, admit it. If your relationships are in shambles, admit it. Do not sugarcoat it. Do not say, I'm just going through a phase. No. Say, I have been negligent. Say, I have been lazy. Say, I have been fearful. Because the moment you admit the truth is the moment you start to gain power over it. The truth is the only foundation upon which you can build a new life. Everything else is just sand. I know the temptation right now. The temptation is to feel bad for a moment and then click on the next video. The temptation is to find something entertaining to distract you from this feeling. But I'm asking you, don't do it. Don't rush to the next video just yet. We are building up to a moment of silence at the end of this session, a moment for you to actually sit with these questions. Do not run from the discomfort. That discomfort is your soul trying to wake you up. It is the alarm clock ringing. Don't hit the snooze button. Let me tell you about one of the most powerful emotions you can ever feel. It is not happiness. It is not excitement. It is disgust. Yes, disgust. There comes a day in every successful person's life when they look at their situation, their bank account, their waistline, their mediocre performance, and they say, I've had it. I have had enough of this. I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. That is a powerful day. That is the day you turn your life around. When you finally get disgusted with your own excuses, that is when you become dangerous. That is when you become a force of nature. Have you reached that point yet? Or are you still tolerating your own mediocrity? Are you still comfortable in your discomfort? You have to realize that life is going to be painful either way. This is the great tragedy that people try to avoid, but you cannot avoid it. You must suffer one of two things, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. But here is the difference. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. It is the small pain of saying no to the dessert. It is the small pain of waking up an hour early. It is the small pain of reading a book when you would rather watch a movie. It is light. You can handle it. But the pain of regret? The pain of regret weighs tons. Imagine yourself at 80 years old. You are sitting on your porch, looking back at your life. You are looking at the ghostly forms of all the things you could have done, all the talents you could have developed, all the experiences you could have had but didn't because you were too afraid or too lazy or too distracted. Imagine the weight of that. To know that you wasted the only life you were given, to know that you let the internal enemy win. That is a burden that will crush your spirit. Do not choose that path. The internal war is not a game. It is a battle for your future. Every day you let slide is a day you will never get back. Every time you choose the easy path, you are feeding the monster that will eventually eat you. You are strengthening the enemy. You are voting for your own defeat. Is that what you want, to be defeated by yourself, to be the architect of your own ruin? Or are you ready to stand up and fight? Are you ready to take command? Are you ready to look in the mirror and say, I am in charge here? The time for playing games is over. The time for someday is over. Someday leads to a town called nowhere. This is it. This is the only time you have. So I ask you, which pain will you choose today? The ounces of discipline or the tons of regret? So here is my final proposition to you. Let this be the day. Let this be the day you drive a stake in the ground and say, enough. Let this be the day you look at the old you, the fearful you, the lazy you, the doubting you, and you say goodbye. You cannot take that old person into the new future. They are too heavy. They are too cynical. You have to leave them behind. You have to walk away from the 97% who are drifting and join the 3% who are designing. Is it going to be easy? Of course not. If it were easy, everyone would be rich, everyone would be fit, and everyone would be happy. It is rare because it is hard. But the difficulty is the filter. The difficulty is what makes the destination so sweet. The fact that you have to fight for it is what gives it value. I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine that the version of you that you are capable of becoming is standing right in front of you, the one who did the work, the one who read the books, the one who stayed disciplined when no one was watching. Look at them. Look at how they stand. Look at the confidence in their eyes. Look at the life they have built for their family. That person is waiting for you. That person is begging you to start. They are screaming at you across the chasm of time, come and get me, come and become me. Do not disappoint that person. Do not let your potential die with you. There is a saying that the wealthiest place on earth is not the oil fields of the Middle East or the diamond mines of South Africa. The wealthiest place on earth is the graveyard, because there lie the books that were never written, the songs that were never sung, the businesses that were never started, and the potential that was never realized. Do not add to that wealth. Do not go to your grave with your music still inside you. You have the power to change the trajectory of your entire lineage. If you come from poverty, be the one who changes it. Be the one who breaks the chain. If you come from a background of addiction or failure or mediocrity, be the one who says, it stops with me. You can do that. You have the mind, you have the spirit, and now you have the philosophy. But you must resolve. Resolve says, I will. Two of the most powerful words in the language, I will. Benjamin Disraeli said, nothing can resist the human will that will stake even its existence on its stated purpose. I will read, I will grow, I will change, I will win. Now, we are approaching the end. The noise of the world is waiting for you. The notifications, the demands, the distractions, they are all waiting to rush back in the moment this video stops. They want to steal this feeling from you. They want to pull you back into the drift. Do not let them, not yet. As I promised, I'm going to stop talking in a moment, and when I do, the screen will go dark and there will be silence. I want you to sit in that silence. Do not click away. Do not check your phone. Just sit there. In that silence, the echo of these words will fade and you will hear something else. You will hear your own voice. You will hear your own conscience. And in that quiet space, I want you to answer one final question. It is the question that will determine the rest of your life. When you stand up from this silence and walk back into the world, who is going to be in charge? The victim or the victor? The drifter or the architect? You or you? The war is over, my friend. It is time to declare the winner.